Good afternoon or good morning, good evening, everyone. This is the Mentoring Club Hour. This room was set up in partnership or collaboration with the Silicon Valley Startups Club on Clubhouse. And that is because the organizer of that club, Sean Flynn, is one of our mentors in the Mentoring Club, prolific networker. We wanted to be supportive of each other's initiatives. And so we set up this 5 p.m. The Mentoring Club Hour under Clubhouse. As we are setting up the sessions for October, we decided that we would do a series to introduce our mentors and the Mentoring Club. And so we are calling it the Career and Life Journeys of Mentors. For today's session, we will have Dr. Lesley Petersen, who will be interviewed by Hong, who is one of our mentors. So just to give you a brief background about the Mentoring Club, we are a nonprofit organization. Our mission is to provide a mentoring community for aspiring and seasoned leaders. Anywhere in the world, we help working people find mentors who can guide them to develop the skills they need to achieve their career and life goals. We help mentees fulfill their goals through meaningful work that creates positive impact in the world. And our long-term vision is that as mentees become leaders themselves, that our dream is for them to become mentors to others. I will hand over the floor to Hong.
Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. We have the pleasure of getting to know Dr. Lesley Petersen, a mentor in the Mentoring Club, about bringing out the invisible in mentoring. Can you share with us that superpower of mentors bringing out the invisible? Can you describe a little bit of that philosophy for us?
Sure, thanks, Hong. We have so many skills and strengths and knowledge and wisdom. The whole idea of mentoring and being a mentor is to be able to share that with another person, mentee, and help that mentee to really sort of discover, unlock, and acknowledge and recognize their own strengths and skills and what they bring to the world and the environments in which they are operating. For me, that uncovering the invisible is finding out, and really sort of learning about ourselves. Like I quite often too talk about, the mentor's identity. And that's very much about getting to know yourself, who you are as a mentor, what are the skills and knowledge that I have, that I bring, uncovering that, because there's so much talent that sits in all of us. And sometimes it is invisible because either we don't know that we have that because we haven't really looked inside, haven't really explored that, done that sort of self-exploration, or we haven't asked feedback from others. Very quick example is a colleague of mine the other day who we were on a phone call and she said, look, you are so good at asking questions of me and challenging me, but without me feeling unsafe or feeling that it doesn't feel right and feel good. She said, you're very, very good at that. And I thought, oh, am I? There's a lot that we offer, but we don't always know that we have that. So I think there's a self-exploration, self-work in that space, our identity. And I think a big part of contributing to that is that we actually get really good at asking other people and asking for their feedback and listening to that feedback and then relating that to our own self-perception and working from there. So that for me is that I like that sort of idea of that, making the invisible visible through those sorts of things.
Can you share a little bit about your first job?
I started my career as an occupational therapist. I worked in the psychiatric hospital side of things. A lot of my work was around working with groups of patients and helping them in that development of those, like I've been talking a bit before about, those innate sort of skills and finding our strengths, finding and helping them learn how to communicate, getting them to be able to manage stress and conflict, because a lot of that was partly why they were a patient in that hospital. I still have gone into that, in a sense, teaching, sort of more like that facilitating learning and development space. But I found my niche with adults. And the other part of that equation, and therefore answer to your question, is that I've just always known innately that I wanted to work with people and I wanted to work in a supporting role. Actually, listening to your story, I think I can actually help you. So I often talk about my mentoring work, one-to-one, or with a group, is that I talk about being a guide alongside, that I'm not there to advise, I'm not there to tell them what to do. I'm actually there to be alongside or like stand shoulder to shoulder and just help them along on their journey and be there to help them when they need me to do that. Going into occupational therapy was very much like that. I mean, it really sort of resonated with me in terms of seeing that real meaningfulness of being in a people and a support profession or a caring profession. So that's sort of where I started my career, and I loved it. I absolutely loved being an occupational therapist, particularly in the psychiatric field, because I had that opportunity to work with groups of patients, with people, and help them to really sort of grow and sort of see what they could cope with, what they could achieve, who they could be. The other option you always had as an occupational therapist was to go down the physical hospital route, which was helping with people rehabilitating after breaking a limb. There's obviously a real place for that, but it wasn't something that really sort of floated my boat. I really liked that other side of working with people, with their thinking and feelings, and helping them to sort of see that they could really help themselves.
You got your PhD. Can you share with us a little bit about why did you decide to go so far in training to get a PhD, and what difference did that make for you?
Particularly when I had moved into the higher education space and was doing a lot of teaching and learning in that space. The last job I had, which was probably the longest time I'd been in full-time employment, was in a higher education institution. One of my key roles there, apart from teaching the adult education qualification, had become the teacher mentor. So my sort of main role really was, as new teachers came on board, came into the institution, they got mentoring with me to help them, assimilate into their job and into the institution, and socialising and the socialisation sort of aspect of that, and really getting the confidence as a teacher. The more that I did that, the more that I suppose that academic side of me wanted the theory behind what I was doing. The idea to go down the PhD track, one was to get that theory, two, to really sort of, I suppose, qualify what I was doing as a mentor in that institution. And so they supported me to get my PhD, which was fantastic. That PhD the research looked at how does mentoring support, it was teachers, but how does it support the professional practice? How does it help people develop and shift their practice if that's what they want to do? What's their support mechanism? When people ask, it was just the most amazing experience for me. And I had the most amazing supervisor, which I think made all the difference. One of the key things that came out of my PhD research was from having to go and delve into the literature and having these participants go through a year of being in mentoring partnerships and seeing how they work, and was that there were all these almost disparate parts in the literature around mentoring. So it's like, here's a bit about mentoring training, here's a bit about evaluation, here's a bit about matching or whatever. What my PhD enabled me to do with it is it culminated in the development of a mentoring model. And that mentoring model brought all of those disparate parts together in a sort of a cohesive way. This is what I do in my work today. Don't start with identifying a few mentors, putting them with some people who think are mentees, and then saying you have a mentoring program. There are so many other component parts to that. That's what the PhD really enabled me to do, is say, like, all of these parts come together and apply it, then what does that look like and how does that work? So the PhD for me has actually become my business today. When I was talking earlier about working with organisations to design and implement mentoring programs, it's based on the model that I developed through my PhD. So I help them absolutely see that you've got to start at point A and go through to, or step 1 through to step 10. Don't start at step 6 and think that everything's going to be fine. There's just all those component parts to that model around being clear about what mentoring means, being clear about the purpose of it, knowing why you're doing it in the first place. How are you going to identify your mentors? How do you select them? My PhD has been an absolute foundation of my business.
Can you share with us a little bit how you validate that passion of yours?
Well, I think it's validated through the work that I do. I think it's validated by the organisations whom I've worked with, and we have done the needs analysis, designed their framework model, put it into practice, seeing how it works or doesn't work, and then coming out at the end of that, okay, this is how your program will be sustainable because we've actually teased out everything, we tailored it to the organisational context and culture. Validation very much comes through people's feedback too, doesn't it? Over the years, the feedback that I've got from the people in the programs, the organisations too, but The best feedback you get are the people who engage with you when you're helping them to get this program working. That's sort of the beauty of the work I do, I suppose, is that when you have people saying, I have so much more confidence now, or I really understand what my role is now as a mentor, or I just get so much pleasure from being a mentor of another person, or I'm so pleased that, we had that training because I now really know what to do and I know how to support my mentee and I know how to engage as a mentor and I know I can see what I'm contributing to that person and also to the organisation. So if I may make a very quick comment, Lisa Gallia, who I'm seeing is in the audience here. Hi, Lisa. She and I worked together in a mentoring program for Papua New Guinean women in leadership. And Lisa is a mentor in the program. I'm more of that sort of coordination, design sort of side of things. Just the absolute validation, using your word, Hong, and pleasure that you get from these women who are emerging leaders being supported by experienced women leaders. The stories that they share around the shifts they're making in their thinking and their confidence, apply for a job that they never would have before. They stand up and do a team presentation, which they would have never done before because they have that mentor support. And then the mentors being so excited about the influence and the impact they're having on their mentees. And I feel like, and to say it very selfishly, I feel like I'm an influencer in that happening for these people. For me, that's an absolute pleasure and really why I do what I do.
Have you had mentors yourself? Have you benefited from mentors? And if so, can you share a little bit?
When I was the teacher mentor in that education institution that I was talking about, I was the only mentor in the organisation, in the institution. And it wasn't a large institution, but there were a lot of teachers, tutors and lecturers whom I was a mentor for. And I didn't have a mentor. Reflecting on this before we met today, and it's probably why I talk about a lot of my work being around that mentoring of mentors, because I just think that's so important. And I think it's often a gap. I think it's often assumed or it's not even acknowledged that those people are mentors who are giving so much and are really, they have that intent and integrity and authenticity and genuine interest to help their mentees to, as you say, grow and develop as leaders or whatever it is, build their careers or feel confident, just build their confidence. As a mentor, I would have benefited greatly from having a mentor. Because I'm a mentor doesn't mean that therefore, that's all good. Lesley can coach, she's fine, she's doing a good job. I actually would have really appreciated having someone whom I could turn to and say, actually, I'm stuck. Or I've had this mentee come in or this teacher and I actually really don't know what to do. And I had no one to do that with, not formally anyway. And the institution wasn't prepared to support me in getting a mentor. And probably, when I look back, I could have been mature about it and gone and done it myself. And I sort of did informally, but I really felt that was a bit of their responsibility too. And it's probably one of the reasons why I left in the end, apart from that I did want to go out on my own in my mentoring work. I didn't have a mentor when I actually really would have benefited from having one. Really lovely that Lisa is in the room today because we talk about this quite a bit. So Lisa and I co-host a couple of Clubhouse meetings and we often share how we have become mentors for each other. So we've developed a peer mentoring relationship. Have I had a mentor? Well, I have more recently. So when I met Lisa and we were getting to know each other through the Papua New Guinea mentoring program, I very openly and very happily talk about how I describe her mentoring support of me. I describe her as my anchor. And I think that that's a really important part of when having a mentor is they are someone who you know is stable in terms of they will be there. And if they can't be, they will be when they can, that they will listen. So this is, I'm talking about this peer relationship I have with Lisa. They listen without judging. She gives me ideas, suggestions. She gives me feedback when I ask for it, but she doesn't tell me what I should do. She doesn't give me advice if I haven't asked for it. And it really helps me learn about myself. And I will say a lovely part of this relationship is that we have created this peer mentoring partnership or relationship where we actually mentor each other. So we're like mentors and mentees for each other because we have our own areas of expertise and skills in quite different areas that we can share with and learn from each other. I really like using words like authentic and genuine. That comes through, when someone is being authentic and genuine and when they're not. Those are critical attributes of mentors. I need to assign, and I do assign those attributes to myself, and certainly to Lisa as an example if you're one of my mentors. For me, it's lovely to actually have a peer mentor, which I didn't have in the past. And I think that's made a big difference to where I am, where I'm going, and who I am as well.
For somebody who is starting out in life or has gone some years into their career, still looking to establish their career, what top advice do you think you can give that person early on in their career?
Very simply, is to find and have a mentor. Because when I reflect back, as you've enabled me to do in this interview, that having that guide alongside that person who can stand shoulder to shoulder with me through my journey as an occupational therapist and as a teaching and learning advisor and as a mentor of other people, I do believe it would have made a difference to how long it took me to get where I am and how comfortable I am with who I am and the acknowledgement of my skills and my expertise. For someone who's sort of starting out, perhaps establishing a career, find a mentor. It's not necessarily easy, that sound advice, but the other part of that equation is you need to know who that person is and how do you find them. And, it has to be someone who you can trust in that role. I think you have to be very clear as to why do you want a mentor, how can they support you. So that's that. Again, that's that real self-reflection. Could be that, look, I just don't even know where I'm going in my career. Well, that's fine. That's enough to say, so I'd really like someone to help me to work that out. That would be my advice, is find and have a mentor. And it may be that you need help to find that person. I think it is more than just say, oh, I'll just go and ask someone who I know from the past and see if they'll be my mentor. I think there's a lot more to it. I do get a little bit frustrated when I hear people saying, look, approach the most experienced person in your organisation, ask them to be your mentor. And I think, well, that's fine, but what if you don't have the confidence? What if you're not sure you won't be able to cope with their response if they say, well, no thanks? There's a whole lot of intricate human emotions and things that are involved in that process. And that for me is always a mentor of others. I do often do that, as you say, that work of mentoring mentors, but certainly in the work I do in organisations, to be very clear about how those mentees will be matched with mentors, who's the right mentor, how do they select the right mentors? Because if you don't have the right mentors in your program, as far as I'm concerned, and I'm very, very clear on this, very sure about this, is your program will not survive because you don't have the right people in such a critical, influential role. So if you're not in a mentoring program in your organisation, it's the same premise as how are you going to find that person? Is there somebody who can help you work that through? Are there resources or other people, programs, whatever, that can help you with that to make those decisions? But yeah, a very long answer to a very simple question, answer at the start, which is find a mentor. I just think that is really a really, really valuable thing to do. The next part is, how can I help you with that? What is it that you need to do? How can you find that person, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's a really important part of the equation.
How did you find the mentoring club, and what made you want to join the mentoring club?
So I found the mentoring club on Clubhouse. My goodness, Lisa Gallia, you're in the conversation again. But Lisa was a person who introduced me to Clubhouse. Thank you for that. For me, obviously, with my interest and passion in mentoring, that's what I was looking for first. I saw the mentoring club, I've got to go to that meeting. I've got to listen in or lean in, as they talk about. Working for many years, I've been in my mentor role for many years, I've been in my mentoring business for many years. I still needed to get the courage to unmute. So I'm really pleased I did, because this is where I am now today, and my involvement with you and with Lizelle and others in the mentoring club. So that's where the relationship started. And I joined it, the values and principles of the mentoring club, when I found out about it, and I met with Lisa, we had the meeting so she could find out a bit more about me as well, really resonate with my values and principles about mentoring and supporting people in their practice and helping people to grow and develop and step into leadership roles and build their confidence and all those things that I've talked about in the interview so far. For me, the mentoring club was an absolute reflection of my values and beliefs and principles and morals and ethics too. It was an easy decision to want to know more about and become involved with it. I want to give back. That's a big part of why I do the work I do in mentoring. And I see Mentoring Club doing that too and wanting to do that. And it supports me by being part of the club as a mentor. It supports me in being able to do some of that giving back at a much more global level, if I can use that word, than I could on my own. I think the main answer will be that real reflection of values and principles around mentoring and supporting people and wanting to see people grow and develop in themselves. And that's what my business is too. So I just thought it was an easy family or an easy community to be part of. And I'm really pleased and thankful that I have been accepted into that family and community.
Oh, we are so lucky to have you, Dr. Petersen. Yeah, absolutely. Where are you heading? Can you share that with us a little bit?
Next for me, being honest to mentoring is most important. One of the things that I have started to expand, building another arm to my business. In a course that I have for new mentors, I talk about it as the multi-talented mentor. And what I mean by that is that I would say if we think about the mentoring context and what mentoring means, guiding and supporting another person, any conversation a mentor gives a mentee, there will be an element of a soft skill or a core skill that person, either the mentee, needs some help with, maybe develop or get better at or improve or whatever. By that I mean to manage conflict, being more resilient with change, to know how to manage their stress, to be able to make decisions, to have the confidence to speak in front of a group. I think about those core skills. We might be talking about a particular scenario, but actually underlying that or underpinning that will be, I don't have the confidence to do that, or I'm not really quite sure if this is the right pathway for me, or I've never been able to make a good decision, or I'm really stressed. I just think they come up all the time. I talk about the multi-talented mentor is that we're needing to be able to help people in all of those different facets of their life and their identity. What I have started as another aspect of my work is what I call empower mentoring. Lisa Gallia, who's in the group, Lisa and I co-host a group on Clubhouse called Empower Mentoring, which we started last week. The first topic that we've looked at is assertive communication. What is it? How do we know that we've been assertive? What difference does it make? How can I build the confidence to do that, et cetera, et cetera? That empower mentoring side of things is picking up all of those core skills, those soft skills, and helping people to be able to do that self-exploration, that find their strengths, recognise the value they bring to the world, to other people. Actually, we all need some support in those areas at some stage. I absolutely do. There's areas I need to be more courageous in or have more confidence in. And I think they're just underpinning life. You know, our life they're part of us. And in that mentoring domain, it's a constant as well. So I want to put a spotlight on that aspect of mentoring. That opens up or enables people who don't necessarily see themselves as a mentor or mentee, because not all of us are mentors or mentees, probably are, but in that formal sense. But actually, I'd really like to know how to be more assertive, or I'd really like to help someone whom I'm working with to be more assertive. And so that empower mentoring aspect of my business and my work is going to focus more on that. So it's just something that for me it's really exciting because it makes a lot of sense and it's pulling out some very, very core principles and strategies and focus of what mentoring is about and making that probably more accessible for people as well. And there was a lot of conversation on how are people coping with this incredibly changed world that we now live in. And I think there's so much more conversation we can have about that, where we help people to work that out rather than just say, gosh, people have got to deal with so much change. Well, let's actually take some time to let's really sort of find out how you can do that and how you can look after yourself in the process. To me, it's a very, very important part of my work. And I'm just sort of exposing it a bit more through this empower mentoring sort of approach.
If you were to write a book about your life's journey so far, what would the title be?
To make that invisible visible. We have so much that we can bring to other people, to the environment, to our communities, or whatever, but we're not always aware of that. Help us to recognise that. And that's where I think mentoring comes in beautifully, is that it does help people to actually make their invisible visible. So that would be my title.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you so much, Dr. Lesley Petersen, our mentor from down below, Hawke's Bay, New Zealand. I'm going to close this interview so that Lisa can stop the recording.